Dear students, this is Dr. Venkatachalapathi, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So, in this session, I am going to discuss about thermite welding in a fabrication process or welding process. Especially during this manufacturing process in the second year, fourth semester, the mechanical engineering student and aeronautical engineering student have this manufacturing process subject. In this course, there are 5 units are there. The first unit metal casting, the second unit the welding process. In that welding, I have discussed some of the types of welding process. In that, another most important type of welding is a thermite welding process. So before going to discuss about thermite welding process, why it has been important and what are the major application for this thermite welding process and what are the various factors to be considered to do this thermite welding process, and also some of the advantages, limitations and applications to be discussed in detail in this session. Okay, let us see the what is meant by thermite welding process. So look at while understanding this term thermite. So here the thermite means the combination of aluminum and iron oxide. So it is the combination of aluminum and iron oxide. When you do a exothermic reaction takes place, this is a chemical reaction takes place, you can able to the oxygen is come out from the iron oxide and iron plus aluminum oxide and some heat, that exothermic heat can be generated. So around 3000 degrees centigrade, where the mixture of 35 kilojoule per kg of a mixture, where the thermite mixture, you can call it as aluminum and iron oxide, Al plus Fe3O4. So here what I wanted to suppose to explain the concept of thermite welding. So when you are discussing the thermite welding, immediately the student think that wherever the railway tracks, so there is a railway tracks, there is a gap between the that rail tracks, in that gap filling that tracks one over the other, the best method is suitable for the thermite welding process, where it is a process where it is almost similar to a that metal casting process. Only thing is, in a welding process, especially in the thermite welding process, there is no power source, DC, AC cannot be used. Only the principle of casting, as you discussed in earlier, metal casting means first you should prepare the molten cavity, and one other time molten metal preparation can be done with the various furnaces of Kipolo, induction and electrical furnace, etc. So in that, once you have to prepare the molten metal, you can pour into the molded cavity, giving a solidification time, and by short blasting technique you can able to get the final component. So here the thermite welding mainly is the combination of casting and the fabrication techniques. So fabrication with two metals, fabrication process, which is also called the welding process. The term welding can be defined as it is the process of joining two similar metals or dissimilar metals by adding filler metal, without adding filler metal, by application of pressure, without application of pressure. These are the 6 important concepts to be understood to define a definition. But while discussing the thermite welding process, where you can add some casting concept here. So you can see this some 3-dimensional figure in a thermite welding. So these are the rail sections. You can see the rail section, in between there will be a gap, how they can pour the molten metal. So especially the thermite mixture, you can call it as aluminum. This is the aluminum and iron oxide, we will call it as a thermite mixture. Thermite mixture. Okay, aluminum and iron oxide, you can call it a mixture. Whenever this exothermic reaction takes place, the iron oxide is eliminated, removed from that iron oxide, and it will be added with an aluminum powder, so that aluminum oxide will come with an iron, and there will be heat generated. That is what exothermic reaction takes place around the 3000 degrees centigrade, that is obviously it is the double of the melting point of that metals, okay, double of the melting point of that thing. So that here the thermite mixture is 35 kg per kilojoule per kg of mixture can be considered in this welding process. And especially the thermite process for welding metal is based on the chemical reaction. Especially this is what there will be a chemical reaction takes place between the finely divided aluminum and iron oxide. So there will be aluminum powder will be there, aluminum powder, and another side iron oxide powder. This is in a black color, this is in a red color. Both will combine together, and oxygen can be removed from the iron oxide and with combined with the aluminum, that is the aluminum oxide, and some heat, because it is an exothermic reaction. Heat can be generated around 3000 degrees centigrade, and once they have to pour the molten metal, and they can apply the pressure after joining the two metal space in a rail section. Okay, so we will discuss in detail. So it is what I explained earlier. The crucible is how the sprue basin will be occur. In the sprue basin only can pour the some of the what are the aluminum mixture will be added together, and there will be at both ends a slag pan, and there will be mold can be fixed together, and once it can be reach the temperature around 3000 degrees centigrade, then automatically the flow of molten metal enter into that two pieces of this railway tracks. Okay, that's what in here only they can fill this molten metal, and after filling that by removing all these mold boxes and all, you can apply the pressure with the help of the some hammers, etc. can be used. Okay, so this is what about the basic concept involved in thermite welding process. Now let us see the how they can able to perform in a rail section. You can see this you can clearly understand that how the rail section, it is a always when you see it is a parallel line. Okay, so whenever one section can be occurred, there will be some gaps may be obtained in that. So in that gaps only, so each plate will combine with another plate, and this gap of that rail sections you can fill that molten metal, and after solidification you can apply the pressure with the help of the hammers. So then it can be fixed together, joint very strong weld joint can be occurred. So there are some 6 basic steps involved in the thermite welding process. We were going to discuss about the various steps. Let us see this thermite welding. We can also call it as a exothermic welding. Why? Because there is an exothermic reaction takes place, exothermic temperature. Okay, and where the thermite welding is a welding process that employs molten metal to permanently join the conductors. So here a student can able to understand it is a permanently joined together with the help of the conductors. The process employs an exothermic reaction of the thermite composition. This is what thermite composition, aluminum and iron oxide. So 8 parts of aluminum, 3 parts of the iron oxide. In this chemical reaction takes place, the iron oxide can be removed, okay, eliminated, and then it can add with an aluminum powder, so that aluminum oxide can be generated, and iron will be separated, and the heat also exothermic reaction takes place. This is what the exothermic reaction takes place. Okay, so that to heat that metal, it requires there is no external source of heat or current. So it is directly by fitting the all the crucible, and there will be a slag coming out of that slag, and all you can able to attachment of that both the ends. This is what you can see. These are the 2 slag pans can be kept at the end. So the all some slags and some extra oxide particles and also will come out of this slag pan only, so that that can be removed after performing this thermite welding process. Okay, and let us see the basic steps involved in the thermite welding process. The first and foremost thing step is the two pieces. When you take the two rail pieces, so always in any track there will be parallel lines will be going to each other, and the first and foremost important thing is in the thermite welding process, the two pieces of the metal to be joined are properly cleaned and edge is prepared. So even obviously in the traditional welding process also, whenever you can performing a joint, first you need to clean the workpieces effectively. So why you have to clean the workpieces means, due to rust particles and some of the oxide particles, some dust will be stick on to that plates and all. If you clean it with emery sheets, and some of the filing should be used to have a some mirror side like surface finish. So then you can keep clean and edges nicely prepared, and then there will be a wax is poured into the joint, so that the wax pattern is formed where the weld is to be obtained. So this is what the second important point is. The first point is two pieces of a metal to be joined are properly cleaned and the edge is prepared. And whereas then the wax is poured, especially in the Ganesh ideals, how they can prepare the Ganesh ideal in each home. So that is what where you can pour the molten metal through mold making and Ganesh ideal type of process. Okay, and the wax is poured into the joint so that the wax pattern is formed where the weld is to be obtained effectively. So these are the two major points, and another remaining 4 points are the, if you take a molding box, so in general, if it is a two-piece pattern, there will be a drawbacks and core box to be used. So whenever if it is a three-piece pattern, so the three different pieces will be there. Obviously, we can prefer three-piece pattern. Another box is cheek box to be used. In this case, also you can see the rail section, how the gap. So initially you can see this is the gap to be filled. Okay, manually with the thermite welding process. Apart from that, you can able to fix some crucible shape of the attachment, and whenever they can pour the molten metal through the crucible, and it will enter through runner, riser and ingate. Okay, so after giving some solidification time, it is obviously they can able to perform in a better joint or quality joint. Okay, so here one thing the student able to remember, in majority of the competitive exams they will ask the what is the thermite mixture. So obviously thermite mixture, the equation you see 8 parts of aluminum will combine with 3 parts of aluminum oxide, and by thermite mixture you can able to exothermic reaction takes place, so that the oxygen can be removed from the iron oxide, and it will be iron, and iron oxide will be added with the aluminum powder, so that aluminum oxide can be added. And obviously due to high temperature there will be few heat which is more than 3000 degrees centigrade. The mixture is 35 kilojoule per kg of the mixture to be calculated, so that the thermite process is very very suitable for the welding metal, and based on the chemical reaction between the finely divided aluminum and iron oxide. So this is what an interesting one to be understood, student. So whenever in competitive examination they can ask clearly, so the thermite welding is suitable for dash type of metals or dash type of welding process, etc. Okay, now let us see the how these 6 steps. First step is the two pieces of the metal to be joined properly cleaned and edge is prepared. Then the wax is poured into the joint, and so that the wax pattern is formed whether the weld is obtained or not. Okay. Now another third point is molding box is kept around the joint. So look at carefully. The molding box, that is drag box and the cope box, is kept around the joint, and refractory sand is packed carefully around the wax pattern, so that in order to some breakdown or changes will be occur in this traditional process. So that is why the wax pattern which is shown in this figure. You can see they can able to some setup will be there, pouring the molten metal, and in this what you call rail sections crucible, and after preparing the molten metal you can pour into that crucible only, and giving the some solidification time it can able to attract to each other. Okay, and another important point is a bottom opening is provided to run off the molten box. Okay, so that is what blowcock and some excess slag material come out of this process only. So if it is a some more what you call more wax and some over melting also, which leads to a lot of problem in this thermite welding process. Okay, and another interesting is the thermite mixture is a crucible which is made up of refractory material. Okay, thermite mixture in the crucible which may be refractory material that can withstand the extremely high heat. Okay, high heat and pressure produced during the chemical reaction takes place. Okay, and last point but not least, so that the igniter means where you can able to perform barium peroxide or magnesium, so which is mainly placed on the top of the mixture and it is lightened with the red hot obviously the metal rod or magnesium ribbon can be happen. Okay, so these are the 6 important points to be understand clearly in the thermite welding process. Okay, so I hope all the students can understand clearly. Now you can see the 3-dimensionally how they can perform the thermite welding process, where you can able to perform this good mixture. Okay, so the first and foremost advantages of thermite welding is without studying a rail, wherever the rail is there they can able to use the thermite welding, which is a simple and fast process, or joining together, joining similar or dissimilar metals will be taken into the consideration. Okay, and let us discuss about one by one what is the advantages of thermite welding, what are the limitations of the thermite welding, what are the applications of thermite welding. All these discuss in detail in the one by one. Okay, first and foremost thing is what you call the advantages of thermite welding. What are the basic advantages of thermite welding? Okay, so in general, the thermite welding is a simple and fast processing, joining of two similar or dissimilar metals. And another important point or advantages of this process. This process is very cheap and no costly power supply is required. That is what I have been telling you. Once we have that what you call thermite welding process, there will be molten metal preparation at the site, and parallelly can able to do this process will be very cheap and no costly. Power supply is required. Only a very low load power only can be utilized in this process. Okay, and this process is very cheap and no costly power source and other than required. Okay, there is a power source means no costly power supply is required. Okay, and this process can be used at the places where power supply is not available. So that is what I have been explained. The major advantages is thermite welding process is a simple and fast process of joining of two similar or dissimilar metals. And second one is this is a process no costly power supply is required. So this is what about the another advantages. Okay, and this process can be used at the both the places where the power supply is not available. I hope you can see the how the blue flame and yellow flame and some white color frame may be obtained while discussing this process. And in this what you called advantage of thermite welding process is thermite welding is as simple as fast process of joining similar or dissimilar metals. And second interesting one is the process or a cheap or there is no costly power supply is required. There is no costly power required is enough. Okay, and this process can be used at all the places where the power supply is not available. This process can be used at the what you call the places where the power supply is not available. Then obviously you need to understand better the advantages of this process, thermite welding process. Okay. Now let us see the what are the various disadvantages of thermite welding. So as already discussed, the thermite mixture means it is the combination of aluminum, okay, aluminum and whatever the iron oxide will be added together, iron separated, and what you call the other iron plus uh, uh, aluminum oxide. So where some heat is also generated, and apart from that, here the temperature is more than 300 degrees centigrade in order to distribute the chemical reactions, or some exothermic reactions takes place in these regions. Okay, so this is what about the advantages of thermite welding process. Even every process there is a merits and demerits. In such case, even this thermite welding process also, where you can able to have a lot of drawbacks. So very few drawbacks I can mention here. Thermite welding is essentially used for ferrous metal parts of heavy sections. Okay, so thermite welding is essentially used for ferrous metal. Okay, and what you call if this is the unacademy for welding cheap meals or light parts. So whenever the people are think that the marriage will be what you call uneconomical, welding cheap metals and light parts also can be used. Okay, so these are the advantages. Means only thermite welding is simple and fast, but where the process is cheap, there is no costly power supply is required. Similarly, disadvantage also, this process is especially used for the ferrous metals such as what you call aluminum, some materials where they having the chemical reaction attracts. Okay, and another important point is it is uneconomical for welding cheap metals and light parts also. Okay, so this is what about the advantages and limitations of the uh, this thermite welding process. Now let us see the important application. So what is the basic application of the process? Process in the sense what you called by joining of right tracks, you can see they will take all the setup into the that rail there, and they can able to pour. This is what about how they can cook like a boiler. Okay, cook like a boiler, and wherever that chemical composition and all, almost all it is similar to the any type of application. And majorly the application of thermite process is, the first one is the reaction of iron oxide with aluminum is used to join the railings of the railway tracks. Okay, so in such cases you need to develop a better. Okay, so it is also used for joining of what you called it is also used to joining the pipes and cables, conductors, etc. But mainly this thermite welding process, the reaction of iron oxide Fe2O3 with aluminum is used for joining rails, etc. Okay, so joining the what you call our pipes, cables, conductors, etc. Okay, this is what about the how we can able to understand clearly this thermite welding process. So in general, for a manufacturing process course, the students comes to the level. Okay, so level of outcome based or some industry oriented technology to be used in this thermite welding process. Here, what is the principle and what are the chemical reactions takes place to perform this thermite welding is a very important process that uses heat from the exothermic takes place. Okay, so that is what about the thermite welding. and where you can able to understand clearly. And exothermic also, what you called exothermic also got thermite welding. So where in the thermite welding process, it is a welding process that employs molten metal to permanently join the as a conductors. Okay, and next another first point is two pieces of the metal is to be properly cleaned and the edge is prepared. Otherwise, we cannot do the design effectively, and you can pour the pouring time also very, very important. You can able to follow the pour temperature also. Okay, and these are the some bottom box, and the bottom opening is provided majorly to run off the molten wax. Okay, so the wax is melted through this while operating, which is used to preheat the joint. Okay, so this makes ready with the good work. Okay, and another thermite is mixed crucible case because of the factory material that withstand high temperature, heat, and pressure, and it can produce during the chemical reaction takes place. Okay, so in such case, what then ignited, that is barium peroxide. Do you know anybody have barium peroxide, or you can also call the magnesium? They are the top based on top of the mixture and lightened with the red hot metal rod and magnesium, what you call magnesium ribbon. Okay, so now let us see this is also another interesting welding by thermite mixture. And also the main advantage of thermite welding is it is a very simple process, isn't it? It's a very simple process, and what you call the process of joining up to similar or dissimilar doesn't matter. So where you can able to perform better, this is the suitable place in this process. It is cheap. There is no costly power supply required. Okay, and one more thing is in this process can be used at all the places where power supply is not available. Okay, so this is what about the some basic advantages of thermite welding process. And coming to this disadvantages, you can see the setup, how this will be a crucible. This is a crucible, and what is the slag basin, some extra oxide forms and all will be separated with the some what you called this thermite welding is essentially used for the ferrous metals of heavy sections, and this is also very uneconomical. So why it is a disadvantage means, if it is uneconomical for welding sheet metals and light parts, obviously if any problem arises, it again you have to redo, means they're also not able to get another couple of trials is required to determine the where it will be. Okay, so this is what about the advantages thermite welding, and these are ferrous metals of heavy sections, and it is also a uneconomical for welding cheap metals and light parts. Okay, and as for this subject concerned, applications is the major role. So you can look at how they can joining the railing of the tracks will be occur. Okay, so this is, you can see there will be a bore, and what you called, it is used to joining of pipes and cables and conductors are the widely used to determine the applications. Okay, and with this I hope all the students you can understand clearly about the thermite welding process. Okay, so in a thermite welding process, the main concept is the basic steps, two pieces, this everybody know that, and with the pieces only, the joint separately, the edge should be cleaned and processed effectively. Then the wax is poured into the joint so that wax patterns are performed where the weld is to be obtained. Okay, and similarly another four is molding box is kept around the joint. Okay, and refractory sand is packed carefully around the wax pattern is shown. So here, whatever the thing you can able to deliver, this type of Thermite concept lecture, and it is mainly during chemical reactions. Okay, so wherever in this chemical reactions, this will be occur effectively. Okay, and what about this? So it is also comes under the what you call thermite mixture. So how they can performing, you can see the advantage of thermite welding. Thermite welding is as simple as fast process of joining two similar and what we call dissimilar metals, and this process is almost all cheap and there is no costly power supply, only manual. Only once it can be reached the position, then you can pour the molten metal, and some 50 to 60% of part in that movie only it can occur. Okay, and this process can be used at the places where your power supply is not available. Okay, so this is what, and disadvantages you can see the thermite welding is an essential used for ferrous metals of heavy sections, and obviously it is an uneconomical for welding cheap metals and light metals. Why? Because the cheap metal means even if it is heated, that distraction of the metals may be occur obviously, and the major application point of view, look at this, the reaction of iron oxide with aluminum is used to join the rail sections. This is what how this you can finish the rail section, and also some of the joining of the cracked metal in cells widely used, some of the joining of utensils, household shafts, gates, etc. This uh, can understand clearly, and also last but not least, it is majorly used for the joining of pipes and cables, conductors, etc. Okay, so I hope the students you can understand clearly about the thermite welding process, so that wherever you can perform better in the uh, conference or symposium, etc. You can take this is one of the most advanced topic, and even the people are having a lot of investment on the mechanical. That is why uh, being a mechanical engineer, you should know where it is and where it is located. Okay, so thank you for this session.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.